A strong immune system. That's the best defense against COVID-19. So what can you do to boost your immune system? That's one way that may surprise you, especially since it also can help fight Alzheimer's. Take a look.
We all know eating a healthy diet boosts the body's ability to fight disease. But what you may not know is that going without food altogether for certain periods of time also helps a lot. That's because fasting triggers autophagy, which is the body's way of repairing damaged cells that can cause sickness, making way for new healthy ones. Neurologist David Perlmutter says while COVID-19 continues to threaten our health, fasting can prove to be an excellent weapon to fight the coronavirus and a number of other health concerns too, including Alzheimer's disease.
Well, Dr. David Perlmutter joins us now. And Doctor, you've got a new book out called Brainwash for clearer thinking, deep relationships, and lasting happiness. People are afraid to fast because they don't like to feel hungry. What do you tell people?
I think it's very important that we feel hungry. We're in the middle of a fasting program right now, and people have asked me, well, what is the most important thing that you get out of it? And I say the word gratitude. I mean, when was the last time people actually felt hungry? And when you break your fast and are able to eat food, you really feel a sense of gratitude that is so good for you. Gratitude actually rewires your brain. And this whole notion that was talked about in the setup, that fasting improves your immune function, I think is certainly very timely. Pat, we don't have a real good offense as it relates to COVID-19. We don't have any real meaningful pharmaceutical aggressive treatment, but yet we can work on the defense. We can work on improving our immune systems, and simply missing a few meals here and there is one way of getting your immune system back into the game. We advocate for people who check with their healthcare practitioners about a 24-hour fast every 2 to 3 weeks, and also something called time-restricted eating. And that simply means only eating food during about a 6-hour window, like from noon until 6 p.m., and then not eating food after dinner until noon the next day. This has been demonstrated to robustly improve immune function. And I think in our current times, who wouldn't want that?
Well, let me ask you about the Alzheimer's aspects of it. You're an expert on disease, and how does fasting improve on that Alzheimer's matter?
Well, I'm not going to tell you that this has been a double-blind trial, because that would be something you would have to follow people for years and years. But I recently actually interviewed a researcher down in Australia, virtually, of course, and he was able to review all of the science that underlies why we're now believing that fasting is so important for the brain. We know that fasting not only shifts the brain's ability to use fat as a fuel and away from sugar, but also turns on the DNA to make a very important chemical called BDNF that allows our brains to grow new brain cells. We know that in Alzheimer's, there's a big dropout of brain cells. So if we can repopulate the brain with brand new cells, that's actually very, very important. So the science that underlies fasting as it relates to the brain, I think, is fascinating as it relates to diabetes, as it relates to obesity. And we know that both obesity and diabetes are powerful risk factors for bad outcome as it relates to COVID-19 infection.
Well, let me ask you again about the preferred ways of doing it. So is it you go without food, or you go a period of time without food, or how do you recommend fasting?
Well, what we are doing right now in our fasting challenge is we started off with a 24-hour fast, which means we all got together virtually at dinner time several days ago, and then nothing but water until dinner time the next day. Certainly people take their medications, and again, check with your healthcare practitioner, but nothing but water. And yeah, you get very hungry, and you really feel, you're stressing your body, which is actually a very good thing. Thereafter, we're having people go to the what's called 18-6 time restricted eating, means no food for 18 hours and only eating during a 6-hour window. Now, this is again a powerful signal to your cells that food may not be readily available. So your body goes into a protection mode, which is actually very, very good and does amplify immune function, good for your brain, and certainly good for your blood sugar.
Well, now, again, who has tested this? You said you've got some colleagues overseas, but has it ever been a thorough study of this thing?
Oh, there has been extensive research on fasting going back, gee whiz, to the beginning of the 20th century. But, understand that fasting has been an integral part of many of the world's great religions, whether it's the fast of Ramadan, the fast of Yom Kippur, or even Jesus fasting for 40 days prior to his public ministry. You know, Ultimately, this is a way to reconnect in a very deep way to some very meaningful parts of our lives. So, this idea of fasting for health goes back at least 3,000 years to the Vedic texts in India. And it's being used now very aggressively by researchers like Dr. Walter Longo with all kinds of nuances, tweaks, if you will, of the fasting program that have been shown to have such powerful effects. And again, getting back to what we're all focused on these days, developing a better immune response so that we can be prepared should we get infected. I think this is certainly, along with some specific nutritional supplements, one of our most powerful tools. And, it's something everyone can probably do.
Now, again, COVID-19 is on everybody's mind. A powerful immune system. Does that mean we'll get the virus or we'll be able to contend with the virus once we've got it?
Both. I mean, there's what's called the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. The innate immune system is ready to go when we are first exposed. And it really has to do with what is our initial response. And then our adaptive immune system is what we bring on board, hopefully to fight the virus. And, if all things were working in our favor, maybe develop some immunity. And, last time you and I chatted, which was probably about a month ago, we were talking about the concept of this herd immunity, whereby when a certain percentage, 60 to 70% of the population has been exposed, then it becomes much less likely that the virus can propagate in our population. Unfortunately, the newer literature is challenging the notion of herd immunity, meaning that it may not actually work, that when we are exposed, we may not actually be immune to getting a second or third infection and having, again, clinical manifestations. So it does tend to cause researchers to look more at the idea of immunization. And, unfortunately, it looks like that still may be many, many months away. So, I heard earlier in the setup today on the program that we may be going into the second wave. And I think, to be clear, most people who are researching and publishing information are indicating that we're still very much in the upstage of the first wave, and that we shouldn't expect the second wave until the fall. So, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think we have to really get ourselves in the mindset that this is going to be a long game and prepare ourselves for this in terms of what may happen, what may transpire over months to come. There's a lot of discussion right now about, for example, sending children back to school. We heard quite a bit about that yesterday. And I think the important piece of that discussion that we're not hearing much about is, yes, we know children are at lower risk for infection and certainly by and large have a lower degree of symptomatology when they get infected. That's for sure. But what seems to be kind of ignored in the discussion is, well, what happens to those children who are infected at the end of their school day? They come home to mom and dad and often to grandparents who may be living with them. And, that is a risk that's not really being vetted. And I think it's very, very important to consider how school children may be vectors for transmission of the virus to populations who are more likely to have a negative outcome.
Brilliant. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate all the insights that you bring to us. Please come back. Thank you.
I'm going to be back. Good to see you, Pat.
By the way, it's called Brainwash. That's his new Detox Your Mind. Dr. Perlmutter is available where books are sold in case you want to get more information.
So many people doing that intermittent fasting right now.
Yeah. Well, this guy's, he's brilliant. He's got some of the real answers. Okay.